It is time for Around the 412 with Smitty and Tyler.
Welcome back to another episode of Around the 412. As always, I'm Tyler. That's Smitty. Go follow us on all of our social medias at Around the 412. Also, go check out our YouTube, trying to grow that up. Go subscribe to our channel there. Leave a like on the videos and leave some comments. Let us know if you like what you're seeing, and if you have any questions about any of the Pittsburgh sports teams, the Pirates specifically on this one, let us know. We'll answer it on the show. Like I said, this is the Pirates episode, and not a ton of Pirates action to talk about. They did have one complete series right before the All-Star break that they did have, where they got a sweep against the Chicago White Sox. Happy that they did get a sweep against the worst team in baseball. And then we saw two Pirates perform in the All-Star game itself, where the AL beats the NL. I don't know if that's a common thing.
11 of the last 12.
11 of the last 12. I was about to say it feels common, but I don't know how common it actually was. I didn't take the time to actually go look at it. But yeah, that's pretty staggering, actually. But anyway, yeah, they did have Paul Skenes as the starting pitcher in the All-Star game, as well as Bryan Reynolds getting into the game as well. He gets a hit in the All-Star game. So we could talk about that White Sox series. Great.
Well, I want to ask you, though, to be honest, before we go to the White Sox series, I feel like we should start with the All-Star game, because I want to know, did you watch the All-Star game because of Paul Skenes? Like, was he enough to draw you in?
Yes, technically I did. I watched the beginning of it when he was pitching.
Yeah. Okay. So that's what. Yeah. All right.
Yes, he was enough to draw me in for when he was pitching. Now, I didn't actually see when Reynolds got into the game because I wasn't watching the game at that point, but I did see his hit. But Skenes was enough to get me to actually turn it on and watch it. And maybe that is just because I'm a Pirates fan and Skenes is a pitcher for the Pirates, but I feel like it was probably more than that. And I feel like a lot of people probably tuned in, at least for the opening, because of what Paul Skenes has brought and the excitement that he's brought, not just to us Pirate fans who have the pleasure of having him in our rotation, but just to baseball in general. The fact that you have a guy who was drafted literally a year ago, like just a little bit over a year ago, and he's performing and starting in the All-Star game this season. I mean, it's something that's never been done before. It's unheard of, and it's something that is going to draw fans. So Paul Skenes is not just good for the Pirates, it's good for all of baseball. But yes, I definitely did watch his outing. I mean, he only did the one inning. I understand it's the All-Star game. They're going to try to get everybody in there that they can. I was hoping for a better at-bat against Judge, though, because I know there was a lot of people wondering if they were going to actually get to Judge because he was batting fourth instead of third, and they get to him. He just singles out on the first pitch. I was hoping for a better at bat between the two of those because I know that one had been talked about. But overall, I mean, he had a scoreless first inning, so more like the status quo for Paul Skenes, and then just a continuation of what he's been doing in a Pirates uniform.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything that you said. It kind of goes back to, I don't know if it was just last week or if it was the week before, but you asked me if it would be held against him, the fact that it will have, less innings than other guys when it comes to, the Cy Young voting when we get to that point in time. And I said no, because I think they want to push this dude. Like, I think if anything, he's going to be given a platform and the narrative could be pushed. Like, I feel like, honestly, for non-Pirates fans, it could get annoying at some point where they feel like he's being shoved down their throats. Just to kind of go along with that, though, why I even brought that up, MLB.com released their pitcher rankings for the second half of the season. And Paul Skenes at the top, number one in their new pitcher rankings, above Tariq Skubal, Chris Sale, Corbin Burns, Garrett Crochet, Seth Lugo, Zach Wheeler, Cole Ragans, Tanner Houck, and Logan Gilbert rounding out the top 10. But that's the jump that Paul Skenes has made. You mentioned just over a year ago that he was drafted. Exactly 1 year ago today, he was in Pittsburgh to sign his contract to officially become a Pittsburgh Pirate. So the jump that we've seen this fast, I feel like it's insane, obviously, but I also feel like we need to kind of dial it back and kind of put it into perspective, because the MLB draft just happened a couple days ago as well. I don't know if we want to talk about that at all. That's not something that we really necessarily dive into, especially the fact that it's not like it's not like last year when we took Paul Skenes. Complete opposite, actually, with a kid like Connor Griffin, who we're not going to see for a very long time. But anyway, I feel like it could kind of skew people's minds in terms of how quickly we do see this development take place, the level that we've seen Paul Skenes get to so quickly. But yeah, I mean, it's been awesome to see. I do think that he kind of drew that national attention. It isn't just a Pirates fan thing, but it was awesome to see.
Yeah, and I wonder, and I kind of want to get your opinion on this too. Do you think that him being put as the number one pitcher and everybody having the opinion of Paul Skenes that they do right now, do you think that's more so just like the fans' agenda being pushed that way, or do you think like actual baseball people are feeling like Paul Skenes genuinely is like the best pitcher, or at least one of the best pitchers in baseball?
So I saw, and this is, for people that are also into streaming, this is where their worlds collide. Trevor May was talking about this. I came across a TikTok the other day where he was talking about just based off stuff. So like no criteria other than like that the innings pitched don't matter, whether you're a starter or reliever doesn't matter. Just what pitchers in baseball right now he believes have the best stuff, and he would want to build through if he was putting together a pitching staff right now. Paul Skenes was number 2 on that list. Like that's kind of where he's viewed already. Like the other people on and I think he even said it's not necessarily in any order. So now going back, maybe he's not necessarily number 2 for him, but it was like Mason Martin. I'm sorry. What's the kid's name from Mason Miller Mason Miller, the closer for the A's. Mason Martin was a former Pirates
from
prospect.
Pittsburgh,
That's why I had that name in my head. Yeah. From Pittsburgh. Corbin Burns was on the list. Zach Wheeler was on the list. Who's the 5th one? It's going to bother me now if I'm only missing one guy from the list. Who else is a really good pitcher?
That's young.
I don't even know if they necessarily have to be like super young. I mean, Corbin Burns and Zach Wheeler were on there as well. I'll have to go back and find it. Either way, that Paul Skenes is being talked about in those circles as well to answer your question. So I don't think it's just like a Pirates fan thing. I don't think it's just like a Twitter thing. I think that he is legit viewed that way. I mean, look at the way that like Jeff Passan has talked about him, whether it's on the Pat McAfee show or just his appearances on ESPN. Like I think that that's just the way that this dude is viewed already. Like again, going back to a statement that we've said on here, if you're picking one pitcher to start a game 7 tomorrow, I think he's on that short list.
Yeah, I mean, I think about athletes, and maybe this is a bit of an extreme that I'm talking about, but I think about some athletes that have gotten to this point and lived up to the hype, because that's kind of what Paul Skenes has become so far. Because I think we all were excited about Paul Skenes when we drafted him last year. I think we all thought he was going to be really good in the majors, but I don't think any of us really expected this type of talent this early, at least at the MLB level, just absolutely dominating lineups and becoming one of the best pitchers in baseball. I think that kind of expectation has really been since he has been at least in AAA, and potentially just when he got to Pittsburgh, because we were talking about when he got to Pittsburgh, if he's been as good as Jared Jones up to that point, then that's like all you can ask for. But he exceeded those expectations. And now I think that because he's exceeding those and continues to just lay on the quality starts every single time he goes out there, and it keeps striking out a ton of guys, not giving up a ton of hits. I think that is just raising the expectations, not just from Pirates fans, but just from baseball in general, because he has the pedigree of being a number 1 overall pick, a national champion at LSU. Like, this is somebody that is going to be looked at under a microscope by just more than Pirates fans. And I feel like athletes that come to mind, and these situations are not the same because these people had the hype beforehand. But like, I'm just thinking of like LeBron James, Sidney Crosby, like people who had that hype and are actually living up to it. I'm not trying to say that he had that hype beforehand, but the fact that he's coming in and being at the top of the game immediately, and they're building that hype and he's still living up to it. We still have a half a season of baseball left. We'll see how that goes. But we've had no signs that Paul Skenes is going to stop what he's doing whatsoever. And so I can't help but to think that while those expectations are high, not just from Pirate fans, but from baseball in general, he has given me no reason to doubt that he's going to live up to those expectations. And that brings me to, in part, why the Pirates need to add in the next coming weeks. But we can get to that in a minute. But that's why I think that Paul Skenes, he is just so much more than we thought we were going to get. He was so much like more prepared than I feel like anybody could have ever expected, because I don't care who you are. I don't care what baseball analytics you are, how many pitches of Paul Skenes you watched him throw at LSU. Nobody expects him to do what he's doing right now. As far as the not just living up to the expectations, but the quality of starts, the record-breaking starts. I mean, this guy has been amazing, and he's been the best pitcher in baseball, or at least one of. And that's why I think that I just wanted to get your opinion on it, because I feel like that is something that is deserving of him. I don't think it's out of the question, and that's why we were talking about it just a week ago. Like, is it out of the question to say that he could win the Cy Young this year? Absolutely not. He is being the best pitcher in baseball right now.
Jeff Passan was on Pat McAfee's show, and they asked him that. And he said if he continues what he's doing right now, he will win the Cy Young. And they said about the innings thing, and he brought up an example. Corbin Burns had like 70 less innings pitched than somebody else that was in the running for Cy Young the year that he won it. Was that 2 years, just last year or 2 years ago? I don't remember. But either way, whenever Corbin Burns won the NL Cy Young, he had like 70 less innings pitched, I guess. I didn't know that, but Jeff Passan brought it up on Pat McAfee's show. So it kind of gives credence to what I was saying, where I was like, I think he's definitely going to be in that conversation. Like, I don't think, and of course, we don't know how the rest of the season's going to go. If we get to a point where the Pirates are out of it and they do shut him down, then maybe the conversation changes, but we don't, like, we're operating on things that we don't know right now. So it's just, as we sit here right now, I think he's firmly in that conversation. Paul Skenes, Pittsburgh Pirates, he's been a game changer. What's going on, everybody? Smitty from around the 412, and I just want to take a quick second to give a shout out to our folks at Game Changers. Their logo on the screen right now, right above my microphone. Over 2,000 different designs in their catalog. Luxury heavyweight material. I'm wearing one of their shirts right now. Best vintage t-shirts in the game. Head over to gamechanger.la or pick6.la to pick up some shirts. And guess what? Use code AT412. Save yourself $10 on your order every single time. Again, gamechanger.la or pick6.la. Best vintage t-shirts in the game. Check them out. I am a huge fan of that shirt, by the way. I either wear that or my Skenes City Connect, like every single Paul Skenes start. So I'm surprised I haven't seen more of them, though, because like Game Changers will always repost people or put them on their story or something if they tag them. I haven't seen a ton of people with that Skenes shirt yet, so hopefully that's coming. A lot of people catching on by now with what's going on. It's really special what's going on in Pittsburgh. I want to talk about that White Sox series, though, because that would kind of lead us into the second half, the unofficial second half of the season. Going into the All-Star break, it was kind of up in the air where the Pirates would be. They needed to sweep the White Sox to get back to 500, which White Sox, like you mentioned earlier in the show, worst team in baseball, but still it's not easy to go on the road and sweep a team. I feel like it would have been maybe slightly disappointing even to go 2-1, but still it's not easy to sweep a team. And there were certainly moments in that series where it didn't look like they were going to. But they take care of business, get back to 48-48 before the All-Star break. So they are 500, third place in the NL Central, very much in that wild card race. Good series all around. And I have more questions, not necessarily that stem from that series, but that with the way that they're setting up the rotation post All-Star break, because you kind of have the opportunity to like reset the deck, reshuffle, if you will. And they're coming out of the gate with Martin Perez, Luis Ortiz, and then Marco Gonzalez out of the break against Philly this weekend. So that is
brother, this guy stinks.
That's a tough ask. Of those three guys, I'm really surprised that they didn't, because I understand Paul Skenes wasn't going to be part of the equation there to start early in this series, at least. But Mitch Keller, I would have thought if you start him in the first game of that series, you also get him in the second game of the Cardinals series. So you get the opportunity to kind of double dip there with your best pitcher not named Paul Skenes.
Yeah, I thought the lineup decision, or at least the starting rotation decision this opening weekend after the All-Star break was very questionable, especially because you know how close these games are with who you're competing against in the wild card race, or even in the divisional race, if you want to call it that. Still, they're 6.5 back in the division now. They were 10 as of like a week ago, so they're clawing back. But it makes me wonder, are they just looking at this series and just kind of hoping things fall their way and not really putting their best foot forward? Like the Phillies, as of right now, statistically, and like the win column, are the best team in baseball, are you just kind of hoping that you can squeak out a win or two with the starting rotation that you are throwing out there? It just seems interesting to me that they wouldn't try to put their
they can win
best
that
arms in there.
series. If they win that series against Philly, I mean, that's
what I'm saying. Like, why would you not at least put? I mean, when was the last time Keller pitched? He pitched in the second game of the White Sox series, so he pitched last Saturday. Why can he not open up that series on Friday or today, as people are probably listening to this? Why could he not open up this series? And
like I said, that gives you the opportunity to have him in St. Louis, the St. Louis series as well.
And that also gives you the opportunity. I understand he's not going to pitch early in the series. Why couldn't Skenes pitch on like Sunday? I don't understand.
Yeah,
I understand he pitched recently in the All-Star game, but he pitched one inning. Like I
guess that's a way for them to
the last time he pitched,
a little bit.
That's true, but at the same time, the last time he pitched a full outing was last Thursday, so he would have gone like a week and a half without a full start. I don't know. I just think that based off of your opponent, I don't understand the strategy, I guess the word would be, is to the pitchers you're throwing out there. And maybe they are looking at you having St. Louis and you're wanting Keller and Skenes in that series, like, because that's a more direct, like, you're taking wins against the St. Louis Cardinals as well as gaining wins. But every single win is valuable. That's why I was just saying that you look at how closely stacked you are. And this has been a conversation we've had for a month and a half. But you look at how close you are with all these teams that are hovering around that wild card threshold. And every single game, every single series is so valuable. It's just, this is some of the stuff that makes me question Derek Shelton still. Like we have said before, like not all the stuff that happens with the Pirates is on Derek Shelton's shoulders to holster that blame. But it's stuff like this where I'm like, what are you thinking in this type of series? Like what is the thought process in that decision?
I mean, no, I'm not like, because I don't know. But what I will say is I don't think that this is solely the manager. I think this is like absolutely Cherington kind of saying this is the way that we're going to limit Paul a little bit to start out the second half. Like I think Cherington definitely has a part in the way that this rotation is set up post All-Star.
For sure. I hope he continues to have a say in how it's set up, just because I want, well, not just the rotation, but the team, because I want him to add to the team. I feel like every Pirates fan does at this point. They have solidified themselves as buyers. I feel like you got yourself back to 500. You're within a game and a half of the wild card. You have to be a buyer at this trade deadline. And if you're not going to be drastic about it, then as we've said for the past several months, that's a fireable offense for Ben Cherington.
Okay, yeah, so let's get into some questions now, because we actually had a question regarding that. I believe this was your guy as well, but like you, Doug wants Brent Rooker. Now that the Pirates are entering the second half of the season at 500, what players would you realistically want them to acquire at the deadline? Think Brent Rooker from Oakland is the perfect bat that they need. I 100% agree. I would love the addition. I don't know where exactly they would play him on the field. I imagine probably right. Maybe move Sawinski to center, Palacios to center. Michael A. Taylor is really the number one guy that they want to replace. I know that Sawinski has not been good this year, but I still think, Michael A. Taylor probably on the pecking order is below him in terms of at bats. So that's probably where he would slide in at. I almost feel like, man, I don't know what you're giving up at this point. He might be the best bat available at the deadline. With the other names that are being thrown around there or lack thereof, Brent Rooker might be the big ticket at this deadline. So then you start to question, are the Pirates even going to be able to be in that mix for him? Or are they going to have to, settle for somebody else, whether it's his teammate, JJ Bleday, or, just pivoting to another team? Honestly, though, we haven't been able to talk about a lot of teams. The Rays, apparently entering the mix of sellers, though, as well, came out today that they would be willing to listen to offers about Randy Rosarena, Yandy Diaz, Isaac Paredes, like their best players, basically. I know Rosarena has struggled this year, but man, unless you're paying them like he hasn't struggled this year, that's somebody I'd certainly be interested in terms of like a bounce back candidate, especially because he's had the postseason success as well.
Yeah, that's true. And this is something that we talked about a little bit with the Bubba Chandler conversation. Like, I think the question of will the Pirates be in the conversation with these people or should they are two different ones. Because we kind of talked about with Bubba Chandler, is anybody off limits? No. So I don't think that there should be a trade that's necessarily off limits. But are the Pirates going to be a big ticket spender? And that's the question we're asking. Specifically for Brent Rooker. Brent Rooker has had a really good 2024. In 2024, currently on the season, he's batting .291. His on-base percentage is .369. He's slugging .573. I mean, he has a really good slash line right now. OPS of .942 on the season.
Yeah, I
I
saw
think
somebody
that,
put out there that he is one of the 15 most valuable 15 most valuable hitters in baseball this year by their metrics, and I'm not sure like how that is fully decided. But I mean, you look at the numbers across the board, and I'm like, I see it. You could probably talk about him being an all-star snub, to be honest.
yeah, and you're probably going to be in a competitive trading market for him because not only are he's not a rental. You don't get him for just this season either. You get him for the remainder of this season, and then you have 3 arbitration years still. So you get a lot of control out of him. It's a very valuable piece to add to this team. Even just looking at this window that they could be having right now, they might be entering a window of contention. He could be valuable for that entire window. It's just depending on whether they actually value him enough to make a move. I think that he would be a great addition. I think that he would be someone that the Pirates, it would make a lot of sense for the Pirates to go in, and someone that we've been clamoring for with a good bat, a bat that will immediately improve your lineup. But at the same time, are the Pirates going to be willing to be the ones to do that? Because when you are that smaller market, you hold on to your pieces a lot longer than other teams are going to. And I understand that. I think that's fair to a certain extent to make that argument. But like I said, if you are entering a window of contention, which by all accounts, them being at 500 at midseason, being within a game and a half of a wild card, and seeing what the young players have been able to do coming up to this level so far, I would say that they're entering their window of contention. Maybe this isn't their 2013, but it might be their 2012. And if you're in your 2012 year where the next few seasons you're going to be in postseason contention, making the postseason, you need to improve your roster. You need to improve your lineup. And guys like that, despite what you're going to have to give up for them, are going to be worth it in the long run because nobody's going to be thinking about a prospect that you gave up 2 years ago if it means you're making a postseason run.
153 WRC plus in 2024 for Brent Rooker since July. 462 batting average, first in the MLB. 18 hits, tied for first in the MLB. 542 on base, first in the MLB. 846 slugging, third, and OPS 1388, second in the MLB.
I mean, I'm just saying the Pirates waited too long. I brought his name up like a month ago.
Yeah. Well, and you talk about the competitive market, hotly contested. I mean, the Phillies have been talked about, the Yankees have been talked about. You think about what those two teams can offer, so I mean, Pirates have, I feel like, the prospects to get it done. Now, like you said, the conversation is kind of, they probably have to overpay what Pirate fans would consider paying for a guy like that on the surface. By the way, if you're not watching on YouTube and just listening to the audio, I put that in quotes because, again, I'm not deeming any of these prospects untouchable. I want to add to this team, commit to this team. While we know that we have Paul Skenes, Jared Jones coming back, hopefully, in the next coming weeks, Mitch Keller, the pitching that they do, and really build with this as opposed to continuing to kick the can down the road. So all on board for Brent Rooker. I don't know that I necessarily view that as realistic as I would have, a few weeks ago, just because of what he's done, the teams that I feel like are going to be in the mix.
Yeah, and maybe his teammate is more realistic because overall he's not having like a great year. Like he's batting .230, on base is .313. But that's somebody that could still improve your lineup despite those things. I think that even if they're not going to be able to get the big fish, that's still somebody that they might have a possibility of doing. And I mean, there's going to be several names available as teams come to the realization that they're going to be sellers or buyers. So it might even be somebody that we haven't even brought up, but I definitely think that the Pirates are in firm buyer contention. They need to be moving in. And I feel like this is something that they do to us a lot of the time around July, around the All-Star break? Like, I feel like they always are winning games, like, because even outside of sweeping the White Sox, they've won 6 out of their last 7 out of their last 10. I mean, they were doing good things and winning baseball games leading up to the All-Star break, which ultimately we're in this situation where we're having the discussion about them being buyers. But I feel like even in years where they're not going to be buyers, around the All-Star break, something clicks for them and they just figure out how to play good baseball, even if it's just for a week or two.
Yeah. JJ Bleday has definitely struggled in July. That is why his numbers are where they are at. Hitting 147, 256 on base percentage, 294 slugging, 550 OPS, and 34 at bats across 9 games in the last 15 days, which is the month of July.
Yes, man, what does he think he is? March of Rowdy Tellez?
So hey, maybe you buy low on him because he struggled lately. I don't know. But I don't know. Those are just a couple guys to keep in the mix. Again, like I think it's a little bit clearer. I think we get clearer with every passing day in terms of who the sellers and who the buyers are going to be. I mean, White Sox, A's, I would think the Angels. There's been talk about the Blue Jays. The Rangers don't seem like they're going to, even though they're 46-50. They just won the World Series last year. They think most of their issues were injury related. They'll turn it on in the second half. In the NL, you got the Marlins, you got the Rockies. Like the Nationals have even been better than I think a lot of people expected, though they're still 6 games back of a wild card. But then you get into teams that I feel like definitely think that they're in the mix. So even if they don't do anything, they probably won't be sellers. So I don't know what's going to happen here. I mentioned the Rays, despite being 500, sound like they're listening on some of their best players. But they typically do that. Like if they just don't like to pay people. So
relatable.
They'll just like, yeah. So I don't know. It's going to be an interesting market. Certainly, in my opinion, a seller's market because there's a lot more buyers than there are going to be sellers. So a guy like Brent Rooker is going to cost a ton. Worst
case scenario for the Pirates, they lose like 5 out of the next 6 to the Phillies and the Cardinals. And then you're a week before the trade deadline or less than a week before the trade deadline, and suddenly they might not be sellers, but they're not going to be as keen to buying anything as well.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. Like I'd like to think that's not going to happen, but you look at who they're playing. Like it's not with like out of the realm of possibility that happens either. With who they come out of the gate with in the second half, so I don't know, but certainly, I mean, if they go 1-5 in their next 6 games, like that's just not going to cut it. Smitty from around the 412 here, and while I may not have much hair, the hair that I do have will not be cut by anybody besides Keek at Keek's Barbershop. My friend Christian Circle, been with us since day one. Keek's Barbershop, located 401 Burkitch Way, Suite 2 in Beaver, PA. Download the app, The Cut. Book an appointment with Christian today, or you can do walk-in with Tony or Ashley. But again, Keek's Barbershop, 401 Burkitch Way, Suite 2 in Beaver, PA. Go check them out. Old school vibe in there. Absolutely love it. Cannot recommend them enough. Wouldn't go anywhere else. Maybe I'll see you there. And then the last question that I wanted to get to here, that is Pirates related, at least, comes from our friend Jeff. How many games do you think the Pirates need to win to get one of the 3 wild card spots? This is interesting because, a couple weeks ago, I would have said, man, a team's going to get in that 3rd wild card that's like a 500 team. I feel like right now the Mets are in there. They're 49-46. How many wins do I think it's going to take to get into a wild card spot? I think the Braves are pretty safe in that number 1. Like I think that they're going to win just as many games as like maybe one of the divisional winners even. So I think
I know the Braves they're technically only 4 games above the wild card threshold, but I don't see them losing that sort of lead.
Right.
But at the same time, I think you're probably going to have to win, like for the Pirates, 500 I don't think is going to cut it. You have somebody that's 3 games above 500 right now in the last spot. I mean, you're probably looking at least 85 to 86 is like a minimum, is what I would guess. To comfortably say you're possibly a wild card.
Yeah, I'm trying to go back to last year and see what got a team in. 84 got the
but how many teams around them were in that same sort of like win area or win total?
I'm just looking at the playoff bracket.
The number of teams that are within reach of a wild card, because even though the Cubs are 3.5 games out of a wild card right now, I would still say 3.5 games out is within reach. So when you're talking about how many teams there are, you're talking about like 8 teams that could be fighting for 2 spots. And I think it's going to take more than finishing 3 games above 500.
Yeah. The Marlins were in the playoffs last year?
They were?
Why don't I remember that? Yeah, they played Philly in the wild card round and lost the first 2 games because it's a 3-game set.
That's probably why you don't remember that.
But them and the Diamondbacks won 84 games. I was going to say 85 or 86. I think we'd do it.
Mm-hmm. So we're in agreement there.
Yeah, I think it's going to have to be. I don't think 500 is going to cut it. I think it's going to have to be above that. But I think there's so many teams that are all going to obviously be in the mix and playing each other. Like something's got to give, where it's going to be very much like you're going to see 86, 85. Like a team is going to miss the playoffs. Multiple teams will probably miss the playoffs by 1 game in the National League.
Yeah, probably. I mean, take the NL Central, for example. Pirates currently a game and a half back. The Cardinals are a half game above the line that you have to be over. They're a half game above the Mets, essentially. And then you have the Reds that are 3 back and Chicago's 3.5 back. At a certain point, 1 or 2 of those teams have to be more dominant than the others, you would think, if they're getting into the postseason. But the worst part would probably be nobody being dominant above each other, and then nobody gets in because of that. Like if you're all just beating each other, that's probably the worst case scenario for your division. I mean, you have the Brewers, but I'm not even including them in this conversation. I just don't think that anybody's going to catch them.
It's just so weird. I wouldn't have expected that before the season for them to be this good. Who was your prediction to win the NL Central before the season started?
I don't remember. I think it was either the Cardinals or the Brewers, one of the 2.
Really? I thought the Cubs getting Bellinger back, adding Shota Imananga. Like I just thought that I didn't think that anybody in the Central did too much. I just thought for that reason, like with the Brewers trading away Corbin Burns, like it seemed like they were going in the other direction. And here they are.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of how I had it shake out. Because I definitely had the Pirates at either 4th or 3rd. I didn't have them last. I think I had the Reds last.
Okay.
But I don't know. But that's what I'm saying. Like you look at the people fighting for those wild card spots. You've got several divisional opponents. Like the NL West has the Diamondbacks, the Padres, and the Giants all competing against each other for spots as well. And so you're going to have a lot of divisional games where if nobody is super dominant over the other teams, it's going to make it prolonged of what we've had for the last 2 months, where you're going to have 8 teams all within 4 to 5 games of each other. And at a certain point, I remember like a month and a half ago, we had 9 teams within 2.5 games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I was saying. There was only like 2 clear sellers at the time, and like we were all talking about the players on those 2 teams as the players that would be traded at the deadline. So, I mean, there's a few more teams that have entered that conversation, but not many. That's why it's just going to be so interesting. to see how it shakes up. We're not far away from it. And I was just going to say the last thing that I got, just thinking about like where we are right now, the games that we play before the next time we record. Do you realize how different the conversation could be, for better or worse, by the next time we record a Pirates podcast?
Yeah, I do, because I just asked the question, like, what if the Pirates lose 1 out of the next 5? But at the same time, or 1 of the next 6. But what at the same time, what if they win both series? What if they take 2 out of the next each of the next series? Or what if they sweep 1 series and get 2 wins into the other? I mean, that would be incredible. That would be above and beyond my expectations looking at these next 2 series. But yeah,
I mean,
it's going to be
trade for Trout.
Trade for Trout. I don't know. Can teams retain salary in the MLB? Is that a thing?
No.
Well, then it would never happen. We need somebody on a cheaper contract.
I mean, what if this was just what they were waiting for, though?
And then they start
this
paying
is the
people?
big move. Yeah, Sarge brings up to me as like a joke all the time. He's like, "What if Bob Nutting he's just been waiting on Soto this whole time? That's the guy he wants to break the bank for, $500 million."
Well, he's going to be that theory is going to come true in 5 years whenever he sees whether he was waiting on Skenes or not, and Skenes is going to be signing a $500 million contract.
It'll be interesting to see what he actually does sign for.
I don't know. He's either going to sign in New York or LA. Those are the only 2 teams. Those are the only 2 cities that have teams that can afford what he's going to sign for, probably.
I hate to say it, but the mustache with no beard, like, it kind of fits in New York. Hope it never happens.
Are the Yankees allowed a mustache?
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
Nestor Cortez. That's who I think about when I said that.
Garrett Cole's contract goes up, and then a year or 2 later, they bring in Skenes.
I hate it. I hate it. I hate this podcast.
And that's why the window is open right now, and you need to capitalize. Yeah. Strike while the iron is hot.
Absolutely. Speaking of irons, Everything Custom Designs, our friend Haley Wagner's small business. Let me tell you about her. Need a custom t-shirt, hoodie, tumbler? Stop what you're doing. Don't go anywhere else. Check out the link in the description. Everything Custom Designs, our friend Haley Wagner's small business. She can do all that for you. She even does around the 412 merch, t-shirts, hoodies, long sleeve tees, bunch of different stuff. I even got a tumbler from her as well. So go check out the link in the description. Goes directly to her Facebook page. All of her stuff can be found there. Again, Everything Custom Designs. Haley Wagner. She does great work. Can't recommend her enough. Go check it out.
Speaking of irons, I get it now. At first, when the ad started playing, I'm like, what are you talking about? And then I get it. Like ironing a shirt.
How does this correlate? Yeah. But yeah, she also does hats now. Speaking of hats, I'm going to have some around the 412 hats if you guys are interested in purchasing them. Haley's going to do some too, but these are from my guy, Josh Mavila. So hit me up if you would like to get one. I'll ship them out to you. 3 different designs. Actually, I don't know what the quality is going to look like, but I can just play because he just recently put up a TikTok from his small business with them on there. It's called Dome Piece Hat Co. Check them out on social media. Let me know if you can see this or the quality of it.
I mean, we could see it.
Okay.
Circle one. Circle one is always the best on a hat.
Yeah. So there you go. 3 different hat styles that will be available.
People on the listening platform are like, what the hell?
Yeah, sorry. There's no way for me to show you guys via audio, but just picture, you guys know what our logos look like. It's 3 different logos that we got. The circular one that we use for a lot of different stuff now, the OG, and then the top and bottom text with the 3 rivers connecting in the middle of the text. So pretty excited about those. Hit me up if you would like to get one of them. I mean, I had to buy them from him. We'll probably do like $20 a piece. I'm not trying to like charge more than what he charged me per hat. So just hit me up. I just want people to wear them. So be really cool if you guys are interested in purchasing them. The link in the description for rocking around the 412 as well. We recently started that, obviously, with July kicking off. Already raised $300. So shout out to the people that have already donated it, but it's our baby. It's the best thing that we do every single year. Obviously, we'll talk about it much more in depth than we are on this specific episode, but you know, it's July. it's the Pirates episode. We know that this episode doesn't get as much traction as like the Steelers. So we'll bring it up on here and link in the description. Be sure to check that out. Read the full mission. Donate if you can. Please share at the very least. You never know whose eyes and ears you will get on that thing. Every single dollar, every single penny that is donated to the mission goes directly to providing Christmas to children in the 724 and 412 areas. If you know of a family, be sure to hit me up as well. Never too early to submit a family for the cause as well. Everything Custom Designs link down there below as well. Game Changer and Pick6.la link down below. Save yourself $10 using code AT412. Be sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, subscribe, and leave a 5-star review. If you are listening somewhere else, whether that's Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast from, you can find Around the 412 there. Leave us a like. I think that's it. Follow us everywhere at Around the 412 as well, including TikTok, where we post clips from the show. All social media platforms, you can find us there. For Tyler, for Smitty, this has been the Around the 412 Pirates Show. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.